So welcome everyone to the Field Forum. And tonight we're going to be talking about the guidelines for after-school youth and summer programs. And I'm just wondering if we could start off, since these guidelines are meant to serve everyone working in third space programs, how many of you, by either a thumbs up or a show of hands, most of you have your screens off, but you could do a thumbs up. How many of you are from licensed programs that are on right now? How many are from licensed programs? So you could do a little reaction. Okay, I see some thumbs up for licensed programs. Great. How many of you are from recreational programs, like a Parks and Rec program, a program that might not be regulated? And how many of you are from 21C programs? Anyone? Okay, yep, got some 21C programs. So the beauty of these guidelines are that they're meant to support and be there for all third space programs in Vermont. So I'd like to start a little bit and talk about what are the guidelines and why were they created. So Vermont is really well ahead of the game in terms of being at the forefront of trends and best practices in the after-school field. But one thing that we did not have is our own set of quality guidelines. So in talking with other states and looking at what they had, Vermont thought about this. At the same time, universal after school is being promoted by the governor, and he created a best practices subcommittee. And one of the things that we were charged to do was to create these guidelines for best practices. So that's what we did. We looked at what other states were doing. I conversed nationally with the National After School Association, and with the support by our governor and the best practice subcommittee, we were able to put together this really robust booklet of guidelines. As I mentioned, they're really for all third space programs. So it doesn't matter if you're licensed, if you're working in a family home setting, if you're working at a recreational setting, or if you're working in a 21C program, or even a teen center. These are really meant to be the foundational pieces of what it looks like to have a solid program for children and youth in Vermont. So the guidelines are really intended to support program administrators, staff, parents, children, and youth in understanding what quality looks like for all after-school, summer, and youth programs in Vermont. So what does quality look like? That's what we're talking about. So you could really take this book, read through it, do the things that are in each section, and Vermont is saying that you would have a fundamentally strong program. They're also intended to be a really clear and concise set of benchmarks that any program serving young people in the state of Vermont can strive to meet. So obviously, when you pick up the guidelines, if you take a look at them and you say, wow, our program isn't doing all of these things. Well, I will tell you, most programs aren't doing all of those things right now. It really sets benchmarks for you to strive towards. So as we talk, you'll start to understand that this doesn't replace a program assessment tool like the PQA. It's not meant to replace that. It's kind of meant to work in conjunction with it, right? So they work together. The PQA is looking at certain things, and the guidelines are really setting benchmarks in each of the areas. And they're going to address components that, when combined, create a high quality program. So as we go through, you'll see the different areas that we address are very specific buckets that we feel like programs need to focus on to have a quality program. They're also designed to act as a means against which programs can measure themselves. So we talk about continuous quality improvement, that continuous process, right? Where we assess our programs, we plan, and then we implement. And that process is never ending, right? We're constantly in this cycle of assessing our programs, looking at the things that we can improve, and then implementing those. So this really is designed to help you with that, right? To work towards continuous progress and improvement. And it's meant to complement and support existing program requirements. So it's certainly not, it does not take the place of licensing regulations. It certainly doesn't take the place of STARS. It's another piece of the gears that make everything work, right? It's another tool that you have to measure your program practices against to make sure that you're offering children, youth, and families the best programming possible. I don't see any questions yet, so I'm going to keep going. As I just mentioned, I just want to be clear, it's really designed to enhance and work in partnership with Vermont licensing regulations, with STARS, and with the after-school core knowledge and competencies. They don't replace licensing or STARS. Any questions so far about what they are, why we created them? Okay. So I just want to talk a little bit about how they were created. It started with the governor's best practices subcommittee, which consists of leaders in different departments throughout the state, from the governor's office, from the Agency of Education, Vermont Afterschool, Child Development Division, obviously Department of Families and Children. We met and we talked about what we wanted these guidelines to look at. We had an idea of the buckets that we wanted to focus on, obviously relationships being a huge one, curriculum and program practices being a huge one, equity and inclusion. So we took those buckets and I brought them back to the After School Advisory Committee. And that is a committee comprised of directors, site coordinators, people from Child Development Division, Northern Lights. We further kind of whittled down what we thought the areas of importance were. And then from there, we started to brainstorm what are the things in each of those areas that we feel make a quality program. I did a lot of research into what other states were doing. For example, Michigan, California, Rhode Island, thinking about, larger states, smaller states like Vermont. We're very unique in that, we have a lot of rural communities and places where there's not always a lot of options for parents, right? Or there's not always a lot of staff to work at these programs. So these guidelines are going to be helpful to those who are just starting new programs, as well those who need help supporting staff, because it can be a tool for the staff for knowing what they should be doing in the program. So we did a lot of research into that, and then we reflected on what's important for Vermont programs. From there, we created a subcommittee, and included on that subcommittee were program leaders, myself representing Vermont After School, and then Joanna Vasey, who was the STARS administrator, has since retired, but she was part of that committee who created these. so that we could also be in alignment with STARS. If you've had a chance to look at the guidebook for STARS and a chance to look at the guidelines, you will notice that the glossary of terms, there's a lot that are the same in both, because we want to have consistency across the field in the language that we're using and in the direction we're going with programs in terms of quality. From there, we needed to get approval from the governor's office, which we did. We received approval from the After-School Advisory Committee, and now they are in print and they are ready to go. We will have some copies of these at our conference, some hard copies to hand out to folks if they want at our registration table, but you can also find them a copy on our website right now, and will remain there if you want to get a copy and send it out to your staff. So how do you use them? How are we going to use them? So really, they're designed for after school and youth programs, both in planning programs, like I said, if it's a new program, and also to improve quality beyond the licensing requirements. So it gives everybody common language for discussing Vermont's priorities for after school and youth programming and opportunities for growth. So I think that's really, really important. That common language piece is something that I think is super important. I'm going to switch gears. Oh, yes. Question. Katie.
Sorry, Tricia. I wanted to look at them to kind of follow along, and I'm not able to find them on the website. Is there a?
I'm actually going to put them up on the screen right now.
Oh, perfect. All right.
And then I will put the link in the chat box when I have a second.
Awesome. Thank you.
You're very welcome. So can folks see these?
Yes.
Great. Thank you. Thank you so much. So this is what they look like. So again, Vermont After School, Vermont Agency of Education, Vermont Department for Children and Families, the Child Development Division. We've talked a little bit about that. We've got a really clear table of contents, an introduction for folks, role of the guidelines, which we talked about a little bit, about how to use the guidelines, which we'll dive deeper into a little bit. And then these are the actual categories or buckets, if you will, that we created the guidelines around. We started with relationships because I've said this a million times, a quality program comes down to the staff that are working in the program. The relationships in the program, the relationships that you build are what makes a quality program. Everything else could be running smoothly. You can have great program plans. You can have great policies for parents. You can have, wonderful training opportunities for your staff. But if they are not creating these engaging relationships with kids and with families, it's going to be tough to have a quality program. So relationships, health, safety, and environment, programming and activities, youth leadership and engagement, family, school, and community, cultural competency, responsiveness, and inclusion, assessment, planning, and program improvement, staff and professional development, and administration and program management. Does anybody notice anything about these kind of categories? Do they look familiar to you in any way? And they might not, but I'm just wondering if anybody's seeing any familiarity with them. I will tell you that they are very much aligned with the new core knowledge and competencies for after-school professionals. So just to be clear, there are certain competencies and guidelines. Some are for the individual staff person and some are for programs. The after school, the core knowledge and competencies are really an assessment of individual staff skills. These are the skills and knowledge areas that every staff need to have and be skilled in to be the best staff person, teacher, youth worker that they can be. These are more program specific. At the same time, it's really helpful for staff to understand these are the things that should be happening in our program to make it a quality program. And as we go through these, if you're a program administrator, you're going to have more ownership over some of these than maybe a frontline staff would. In particular, administration and program management, maybe some of the assessment, the beginning pieces of the assessment. But there are lots of things in these guidelines that are really helpful for frontline staff to read through and understand, yes, this is important to be happening in our program. And if they notice themselves it's not happening, then, if you're a frontline staff person, if you are someone that's working directly with kids and you read through these and you say, yeah, this isn't happening in our program, I would urge you to go to your site coordinator and say, let's talk about this at a staff meeting. I'd love to see this happening in our program. So we talked a lot about this already, kind of why they were created. But I'll just read again the highlighted piece. The guidelines are intended to be a clear and concise set of benchmarks that any program serving young people in the state of Vermont can strive to meet. And that's really helpful we really see this as a tool for parents who might be, coming into the state, new to Vermont, wanting to understand what Vermont values in their youth after school and youth programs. This would be a tool that would be helpful to parents so they know that these are the things that we hold as the benchmarks for our programs in Vermont. So I just want to highlight this a little bit. So the role of the guidelines. Again, it's not just for program staff, right? It's a guide to help after school and youth work providers assess what they're doing well and where they should make improvements. It's also a way for parents and caregivers, children and young people to understand the key expectations of after school and youth programs in Vermont. It's a set of guidelines that, when adopted, can promote an understanding to funders that programs they support will provide quality practices. So if you are a program applying for a grant, and it could be a national grant or even an in-state grant, you could use these guidelines to in your grant proposal, right? That you're following these guidelines and that you have a high expectation for quality in your program. It's a commitment by the entire community to give children and young people access to a wide range of enriching third space experiences. I really like this one. It can be a means to help educators and community partners understand the key elements of quality programs and provide common language for the partnership. How many of us work in public schools? A lot of people probably run their programs out of public schools. Not every principal, school administrator, or teacher values or understands the value of an after-school program. Maybe they think we're doing arts and crafts. It's a place where kids can go until their parents pick them up, right? They're doing arts and crafts, they're going outside, they're getting a snack. Well, this is a way to educate at school boards, at teacher meetings, at IEP meetings. This is a way to say, here, this is what we're doing in our program. This is what we're measuring ourselves against. And it really helps them understand the elements of quality that we're striving for in our programs. And again, once again, it's designed to enhance and work in partnership with licensing, STARS, and the core knowledge and competencies. So I'd like to get into it a little bit, and I'm just going to stop sharing for a second, see if there's any questions, because I'm going to go area by area now and share what the guiding principles are for each area and what the actual guidelines are. Okay. Again, if you have questions, please take yourself off of mute and feel free to share. So our first area is relationships. And again, we went back and forth as to whether we actually debated this, whether to put program, administration first, because there was an argument that, well, if you don't have good program administration and good program practices, then you're not going to have a program. And then there were some of us who kind of challenged back a little bit and said, well, relationships, that's the most important thing, the staff, the people that are working with the kids. And so we did end up putting that first. So the way that this booklet works is in each area, there's a guiding principle. So the rationale really about why is this an important area? And then we bullet out the things that programs and staff should be doing in their program to make sure it's a quality program. Now, we could have probably listed 25 things in each area. It was a task, a very grueling task, to really come up with the things that we felt were the most important and most meaningful. This went through many iterations of drafts, many. And this is what we came up with and what was approved. And I feel like it's a really solid piece of work. But we'll go through, and I welcome questions as we go along. So the guiding principle for relationships: after school and youth programs develop, nurture, and maintain positive relationships and interactions among staff, families, school personnel, and children and youth participants. For children and youth to feel engaged and excited about programs and activities, staff and volunteers must work together to foster strong relationships with all program participants. Programs provide a welcoming and inclusive environment with opportunities for children, youth, and families to connect with each other in meaningful ways and build community. As we go through these two, you'll notice that even though we have a separate area for equity and inclusion and cultural awareness, it really is woven in throughout the guidelines. So there were four main things that we put in this section. The program prioritizes collaboration with and engages each person in respectful ways to meet the needs of individual children and youth. Program models positive relationships and safe, healthy boundaries. Program provides support and mentoring to guide the behavior of children and youth in positive ways. And program builds and sustains relationships with all program participants that are positive, nurturing, and consistent. Now, I did have a question. Several people said to me, well, how do you do that? This isn't a how-to guide. I just want to be clear about that. This is not a how-to guide. This is stating what you should be doing. And I'll mention this again at the end, but this isn't meant to be a document that you just take and you take by yourself and you try to do these things. You need to work as a staff to talk about strategies of how you're doing this. You may be doing a lot of this already, but if you're not, or you feel like you're struggling in some of these areas, I would really encourage you to meet with the staff and talk about some strategies. Vermont Afterschool is also available to come out and do coaching. We can come out and do program visits. We can come out and support you in any one of these areas. If you're like, yes, we know we need to work on this area, but we're not sure where to start. So, but this really is the guide. It's not the how-to. Any questions or comments on this first section? Okay. Second section, health, safety, and the environment. Excuse me. After school and youth programs provide healthy, safe, and developmentally appropriate environments for children and youth. Participants' physical and emotional safety and well-being is paramount. We did include in these, in certain areas, the ensuring that program has certain policies and practices in place. So this is one of these areas. So program has clear policies and procedures in place to protect the safety of all children, youth, and staff, including abuse prevention and reporting training, background checks for staff and volunteers, and fingerprint authorizations when required. Program participants are appropriately supervised during all program activities. Program provides all children and youth opportunities for a dynamic physical activity daily. We debated that one a lot. Dynamic is what we ended up landing on, dynamic physical activity, because going outside just, is not enough. We're saying we want them to, really be physically active. Program ensures all meals and snacks provided by the program are healthy, plentiful, and nutritious. Program ensures an emotionally safe, welcoming, and supportive environment, free from aggression or bullying, to protect and support the social and emotional health of all program participants. And programs' indoor and outdoor spaces are clean, safe, and accessible to all children, youth, and families. So you can see that there is some overlap between the PQA, the program assessment tool. There's overlap, with licensing regs. There's overlap. There's going to be some overlap with STARS. But this really encompasses all of the points in one document in all of the areas where you can, have these benchmarks and these guidelines. Any questions about health, safety, or the environment? Any volunteers to read the next one, or would you like me to just keep reading? Any volunteers? No?
You're doing great, Trisha.
All right, thanks, Katie. I'll keep on going.
I think we're all eating dinner and listening. So
that's fine. That's fine.
Do and read.
So the guiding principle for programming and activities. So obviously, this is a huge part of your program, a huge part of your program. We want to make sure that kids just aren't coming, and like I said before, sitting in the cafeteria, coloring or doing Legos all afternoon, or, sitting outside in a swing. I'm not saying that those aren't important things for kids to do, but we want to make sure that there are a variety of activities that are really engaging kids. We've got something in the chat here. You're doing great. Okay, great. Thanks, Beth Ann. So, this is a really important area where, programs can look and say, yes, we need to be doing this stuff. It's about being intentional about our planning, right? And making sure that kids are learning new skills and, making connections to what they're learning during the school day. And it may be activities that are helping with their social skills. So we have a really, really important role in after school and youth and third space programs to create opportunities for kids to have this age appropriate learning and skill building. So with that said, really the guiding principle is to offer that variety of activities that are engaging, developmentally appropriate, and culturally sensitive to enrich the physical, social, emotional, and creative development of all participants. Child and youth input and interest are incorporated into the program's curriculum planning process. That's such an important part of it. Such an important part that we're taking into account. Who are the kids in our program? What do they like to do? What's accessible in our community? Let's take advantage of it. Thanks, Sue. So the guidelines that we came up with were: program engages children and youth in the planning, development, implementation, and evaluation of the program. That reflection piece, finding out from the kids, how did it go? That's a really important piece. Program provides a variety of engaging opportunities for age-appropriate learning, physical activity, skill building, and social emotional development. Program offers opportunities for children and youth to make authentic choices based on their interests. What I mean by authentic choices is, it's not like kids get a choice between, okay, do you want to go outside or do you want to be inside? Do you want to do arts and crafts or do you want to do cooking? You know, authentic choices are when kids really get to decide, you know, within the activity, well, I'm going to do this activity with clay. I don't want to do it with paper and pencil. I have this idea where I want to take clay and I want to do this, or I really want to, you know, kind of experience cooking this in a different way. I want to change up what's that, what I'm trying to say? The recipe. I want to change up the recipe, letting them have some authentic choices in what they're doing. Program activities support active engagement through project-based and experiential learning in real-world context. Program activities provide a balance of structured and unstructured time, as well as activities for individuals that small and large groups. Great, we still have folks joining. Program activities enhance the positive development of children. Program activities are well supplied with appropriate materials. That was a mouthful. Questions? Wow, we have done a really good job here because nobody has any questions. Hopefully it's really clearly laid out. The next section is youth leadership and engagement. So this kind of, you know, going off of what I just said, talking about how important it is to get the kids' input in the activities, but also to put them in these leadership roles to help them become leaders, right? And support them in that. So the guiding principle for this is that after-school and youth programs promote a sense of purpose and individual empowerment in children and youth for opportunities to engage in a variety of experiences. Children and youth should engage in the planning process and exercise authentic choice and leadership in the program. Now, in my opinion, you can run a program with kindergarten, first and second grade. There are still many opportunities to put kids in a leadership role or to give them responsibility. Because how does leadership start? You give appropriate amounts of responsibility to kids and they learn, right? They learn that. So at different ages, it's going to look different. That leadership piece is going to look different, but it can start very young. It can start with the first point here, giving them input into activity planning, implementation, and evaluation. The program supports children and youth to develop skills in decision-making, planning, and goal setting at a level that's appropriate and considers individual strengths. So we can set kids up to be successful. Program provides children and youth with authentic opportunities to practice and develop leadership skills. Program provides children and youth opportunities to make meaningful content and process choices during activities. That's really, really important. And again, at any age. So I'm a big believer in that important part of our jobs and the important part of our program's role is to maintain quality relationships with the families. And our programs are part of the community. So, and many of them are located in schools. If you're a family provider or if you're working in a teen center, you're still obviously a big part of the community. So how do we establish and maintain those relationships? So that guiding principle is about establishing and maintaining strong working partnerships with families, schools, and the community stakeholders to support children and youth in the programs. So our guidelines. Programs support families by providing opportunities to connect with each other through program events. I think that's one that a lot of programs could look at and say, wow, yeah, we could do more of that. Even small, simple events in your program. I'm not going to elaborate. Oh, that's another time. Program engages families. I could do a training on each one of these bullets, right? Program engages families in program planning and improvement through regularly occurring evaluation. So giving those families opportunities to give input into the program, right? And maybe that's not all the way at the end of the year. Maybe you're doing it multiple times during the year, so you have a chance to implement that feedback that parents are giving. Program staff maintains two-way communication with relevant partners. So that could be school principals, the maintenance staff in the school counselors, teachers, and you're doing that in a variety of ways. So program seeks opportunities to align in-school and out-of-school learning and implements activities that complement and enrich the school day activities. And you might just learn this information from the kids, right? It could be as simple as, hey, what are you all learning about in school? And then taking off on that and doing some really fun activities around what they're already learning in school. Program intentionally incorporates opportunities for children to help children and youth become engaged in the larger community. So that could be community service projects. It could be, helping out in the school. It could be helping out outside of school, but being part of that larger community is really important. Program supports the development of real world skills, including career awareness and exploration. That's obviously for middle school, high school, teen programs. Program incorporates community members, businesses, families, and caregivers into the program when appropriate to support real world skills and learning. And again, that's going to be depending on what part of the state you're in too. Programs in the Chittenden County area have a lot more resources to bring folks into their program. But, if you're living in a rural community and you have a mom that really is good at woodworking, or you have a dad that, is really great at guitar playing, how do you incorporate those things into your program? Questions about family, school, and community connections. Okay. So cultural competency, responsiveness, and inclusion. As you know, or may not know, equity and inclusion is a new core knowledge area for Vermont for after-school professionals. So we're going to be offering a lot more intentional training around this. We are offering a pre-conference training, a national speaker the evening before our conference that's going to be open to folks. And that is going to be our topic. It's going to be a deep dive from, I believe it's 1 to 5, the evening before the conference. So, as we go through this and think about the core knowledge areas, Vermont After School is also very aware of looking at the gaps we have in professional development and working to create workshops that are going to fill those gaps to strengthen the skills of staff in these areas. So just thought I'd mention that. So the guiding principle, after school and youth programs respect and are responsive to the diversity of program participants, their families, and community to foster a sense of belonging. Program implements policies to ensure a safe atmosphere for children, youth, and staff to express their own identity. For example, cultural beliefs and practices, gender, and sexual orientation. Program treats children and youth with respect and recognizes and embraces their range of abilities and talents. Program is aware of various family structures and cultural dynamics that exist within the program and provides an inclusive, welcoming, and respectful environment for all children, youth, and families. Program provides children and youth intentional opportunities to explore, share, and celebrate each other's heritage and culture in the program. Program recognizes and understands cultures of participating children and youth in the program and is responsive to the individual youth needs, recognizing their special interests, feelings, abilities, and cultures. Program recruits, hires, and develops qualified staff who reflect the diversity and culture of the community served. Program provides all staff with ongoing training for cultural competency and promoting self-awareness about power, privilege, and equity issues that impact children and youth. It's a really, really robust area. This one, honestly, there was a lot of discussion around this to be sensitive that we were including everything that we thought was really, really important. And again, we tried to weave, the importance of equity and inclusion throughout the document, but felt it was really, really important to have something very intentional stating all of these things. I'm going to pause, see if there's any comments or questions about any of these bulleted items. Okay. Next, we have assessment, planning, and program improvement. So one of the things that we want to make sure that all third space programs are doing is that they're taking that time to do some reflection and self-assessment of their programs. It's very easy to get caught up in what we're doing and just do it. We go from after school to vacation camp to summer camp to after school to it's really, sometimes we have to really stop and say, okay, let's take a look at our program and do a self-assessment. Who do we need to involve in this, right? Where are the areas that we can grow? Because I'm a huge believer that there's always room for improvement. So how do we assess? How do we plan? And then how do we make that improvement? Again, that cycle of assessment, plan, improve, assessment, plan, improve. So the guiding principle is just that programs have policies and procedures in place that promote continuous improvement. So the program conducts regular self-assessments of program strengths and weaknesses and implements planning and continuous improvement strategies involving staff, families, children, and youth. And regular could mean, at least annually, I would imagine you would want to be doing a self-assessment. Program establishes measurable goals aligned with the mission and vision of the program and then that are based on the self-assessment. Program regularly assesses its effectiveness through various formal and informal evaluation activities. So again, surveying parents, perhaps you're doing a focus group, perhaps, you're chatting with kids, you're doing a feedback box, however you might do it. And then program uses the self-assessment process and evaluation activities to track results and data to drive the decision-making and the continuous quality improvement over time. So it's something that's continual. You're tracking it. You know what you've worked on. You're maintaining that. You move on to the next thing. You revisit old goals to make sure that they're still happening. I think that, again, it goes back to staffing. You know, you may have a year where you've worked on certain things, and now the next year you've got all new staff, and that may change. So, you know, you have to keep that in mind when you're doing your self-assessment, that your plan is going to change when you have new staff, or when there might be, you know, new things happening in your program. It just depends. So it's a continuous cycle. You know, I'm really hoping that as we go through this, that most of you are saying, yeah, we do those things. We do those things. Or, yeah, we do that a little bit, but now it's making me think, how can we do that better? Right? Or never thought of doing that. Yes, let's start doing that. That's going to be something we talk about at our next staff meeting. This is what this document is meant to be, right? To get you thinking about what are the things we should be doing in our program, and then having these conversations with staff and families. Staff and professional development. There's a lot here, though. Okay. After school and youth programs support the development of competent and motivated program staff by providing ongoing resources, support, and training so they can offer high quality programming and have a meaningful impact on children and youth. The program provides all new staff with a comprehensive orientation to the program philosophy, routines, and practices. I know this is something a lot of programs can improve upon, is that orientation. Program ensures each staff member builds an individual professional development plan that reflects their professional goals. Staff and supervisor revisit the plan and update continuously throughout each school year. Program staff receive relevant training and attend ongoing professional development activities that support their own growth and build more effective program practice. Program provides program directors and administrators with program management and staff supervision training, as well as ongoing professional development. How many of you have stepped into a director role or administrator role or site coordinator role and not felt you received that support around program management and staff supervision, right? We're saying that a really solid program is doing that. Program provides all staff with ongoing opportunities to receive and give formal and informal feedback. Program ensures that all staff understand the accessibility needs of students and families and how to seek out other professionals with expertise if needed. We know that we are not social workers. We are not, trained to handle all of the needs sometimes of our students, but we know and we're training our staff to how to seek out other professionals if the parents need that. Program ensures all staff receive annual reviews to improve their skill and progress towards individual professional development goals. Okay. I believe this is the final one. So it's funny because this is the one we thought about putting at the beginning, and it ended up at the end. And it really kind of, I think, wraps things up. It's more of the big picture of the program, right? So while you need to have all of these things kind of at the beginning to start a program, I think once you have all these things in place, the other things are the foundation of the program. So it's just kind of interesting to me that it ended up, we put it last, but the guiding principle is effective programs have a strong mission, a well-developed organizational supports, and sound fiscal management to maintain and enhance quality programming and activities for all participants. So the guidelines are: program has a clear mission and vision statement and a written philosophy that is widely understood and shared among staff, parents, and the community. If you have program goals and a mission statement, if I walk into your program, your staff should know what that is. Could be one sentence. It could be, what is your overall goal for this program? But it needs to be somewhere that it's written, it's widely known and understood by everyone. Program administrators and program leaders establish strong communication strategies for staff and families so that policies are clear and known. Specifically, we're talking about staff and family handbooks. So making sure that your program has a staff handbook, has a family handbook. Program has strong fiscal management that supports program goals and continuous improvement. Program has administrators and program leaders who are accessible to staff and families. Program ensures staff to participant ratios and group size, enable the staff to meet the needs of the participants. Obviously, we didn't put specific ratios in here because it's going to depend if you're licensed, if you're working with really young kids, if you're working with older kids, if you happen to be doing an activity where you're using tools and your ratio needs to be lower. So it's basically left open-ended on purpose, but it needs to meet the needs of the participants and align, obviously, with licensing regulations. Program has policies and procedures that are responsive to the needs of children, youth, and families in the community. Program administration has a system in place with input from staff, children, youth, and families to support continuous program improvement, and program seeks expertise from appropriate entities as needed to prevent the expulsion of children who may need additional support. So those are the core. Oh, sorry. Nope, it's not the core anything. It's the guidelines. I'm confusing my documents. So again, where do we go from here, right? The guidelines are a first step. So they really are going to support quality in after school, summer, and youth programs. On their own, I think they're really do a good job of articulating the overall objectives that Vermont programs want to achieve. Not every program is going to achieve the highest level of quality in every area. Not at the beginning, and maybe not even a year or two into it. We know that even the best programs are constantly striving to make their programs better. So again, I can't say it enough. It's a process of programmatic change, of continuous quality improvement. It takes time and it takes commitment. I want to also mention again that there are lots of professional development opportunities, customized coaching. You can always reach out to Vermont Afterschool. But this really just, again, lays the foundation. So when I'm thinking about now as a Vermont Afterschool coach, someone going out to a program, I really see myself having the PQA, that program assessment tool, in one hand. I've got my STARS guidebook, and I've got these guidelines for quality. The guidelines for quality are really like the foundation, right? The foundation. And then STARS is going above and beyond, really diving a little bit deeper and creating that plan for improvement. And then the core knowledge and competencies are really, again, for the individual. They should be something that each individual staff person is reading through those, and they're saying, these are the skills, the skills I have, these are the areas I need to grow in, and this tool will help me create an individual professional development plan. And the PQA really focuses in on all the programmatic things that you should be doing. So they all kind of work hand in hand. You know, the guidelines, again, are that baseline. So I am going to open it up for questions and comments. And feel free to show your face if you have a question or put it in the chat box. This last few minutes is really going to be just hearing from you, reactions, thoughts. Are you all still there? Nobody has their camera on. Oh, Beth Ann, yay, somebody's still there.
I am here. I was just wondering if you could speak a little bit more about utilizing this tool when presenting to, say, a school board. Because I think all of these pieces are so foundational and so important, but sometimes it can kind of feel like white noise after a while if I'm just sort of bulleting. So I wonder if you have any strategies or additional supplemental materials that might help really hit these points home, because I think the handbook is going to go a long way in supporting this. But I'd love anything else that we could kind of do additionally to really hit these points home with, again, say a school board or a parent community.
Yeah. Well, when we created these, and I will share the link in just a moment, whoever asked for that, I think that we intentionally made this booklet very short and to the point, right? So it did seem like a lot. I was talking a lot, but I think we don't at this point have any supplemental tools to go with it. But I think you could certainly create a presentation from this, even using that guiding principle, that first statement in each of the areas, right? I think for me, and doing this now for over 30 years, I still think there's, at some schools and with some principals, this attitude of, well, they're just that other, that other program, right? That we're not seen as part of the school. Again, they know we're doing these enrichments. Yes, we know they're cooking. Oh, they're doing some STEM activities, but it's not what we're doing in school, right? So it's this constant education. So I think going to a school board meeting and saying, hey, this is what Vermont, not my program, not Vermont, not just my program. This is what the governor's committee best practices says are what we are the benchmarks. And this is what we're striving for in our program. I think there's a lot you could pull from that. So I'm sorry. I mean, I don't have any other like resources right now. This was already a year in the making. This was a year in the making. Yeah.
It's so clear, again, the work that has gone behind it. And I think the alignment with so many goals that we see in 21C that I see within my district. And I really like what you said about framing it through the lens of, this is a statewide initiative. This is not just me and my little after school program throwing out some words. This is something that we're doing to align at the state level. And I appreciate that. That's a really helpful tool for me to use moving forward. So thank you so much.
Oh, you're very welcome. Let me find my chat. And I'm going to put the link in here right now. And there it is. It's on the program under professional development. It's under program resources. So other comments and or questions?
Hi, Trisha. I think this is
Hi,
great.
Sue. How are you?
I'm doing well, thanks.
Good.
I think this is great. And, having also been at this for a long time, not going to say how long because that tells you how old I am. I think that what I'm most excited about is that as was said previously, this is a statewide initiative. and the statement, all boats rise, that it gives us like equal footing if we are all working toward the same thing. So
Exactly.
I thank you and the group for putting this all together. The piece that I would love to see next, and I know that like
Mhm.
a whole lot of moving parts here with all the different tools that we use, but a resource that would connect those so that when we're looking at the YPQA, we can say like, and this is the YPQA piece, and here's where it relates to this
So almost
document.
like a crosswalk.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I would love to, I mean, I'm not asking for you to have it tomorrow,
No, but that's a really good point.
but
I
especially as we start to do stars, it'll be really helpful, I think, for us to see that connection and be able to say like, oh yeah, that's that piece in the new stars, whatever it's called, whatever. I don't know what the initials are. I forgot.
Oh,
SP.
Sparks.
Sparks. Sparks with a
Yes.
Q.
At
Right?
Sparks with a Q. Yes.
Okay. Yeah. So thank you.
No, I think that's a great idea. I just wrote a note about that. It's something that we've mentioned, but haven't really thought it all the way through yet. But it's a great idea.
I'm sure there's somebody out there that's really good at that kind of stuff that can
Yeah,
pull it all
it
into
probably
a tool.
isn't me, but yeah.
Me either, which is why I asked.
Yep. Other thoughts, questions, comments? While we're still on, I do want to let you know of another field forum that's going to be coming up that I just set up. I sent out, I think, an email today about it, but I'll mention it again. I was able to set up, I know that STARS and CDD has been doing some trainings for early childhood staff around the new STAR system. And so I requested that there be a training specifically for after school folks and youth programs. So on October 25th, from 6 to 7, we're going to have some STARS administrators here talking to us about the STARS system and about Sparks. So I think that would be really, really great. And I'm just trying to find the link so folks can register. I did send it out today, and for some reason, I'm having a hard. Oh, here it is. Make sure. STARS informational. Yes. So I'm going to put, this is a link to register for that. I really recommend that you go. It's going to be a great opportunity. I think I can stop recording now. Stop video. Nope. Let's stop video.